Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another edition. My name is Michael Ween, live from Houston, Texas, Tuesday, April 23rd, 10:23 p.m., less than 48 hours before the 2024 NFL Draft officially is open, as Roger Goodell says every year. We are very excited here. This will be our last and final pre-draft episode, but it's going to be a fun one, as Emmy and I will be doing our yearly full first round mock. This is usually our last episode right before the draft. We're going to do it like we always do with our other mocks, except we'll be going through the entire first round, possibly some trades included. We will be tweaking it a little bit once we get into the 20s so that I have my Steelers pick and Emmy can have his Cowboys pick. We will do Emmy odds 1 through 22, me evens 1 through 22, and then he'll get 23 and 24. So he'll get the Cowboys pick, and I'll get 24 and 25, and then it'll return back to normal from there. But before you do any of that, please like and subscribe if you like what we do here. Please check out Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. We've got 2 of those episodes coming at you every single week. And check out all the other great content that we have here on the Raw Prospect Podcast YouTube channel and on our podcast feeds, wherever you may listen to podcasts. Let's waste no more time, though, and let's welcome in my esteemed co-host, a draft nerd himself, and a busy man, Mr. Emmy Nixon. What's up?
Nothing much, man. This is one that we wait on every single year. A full mock draft. I'm real excited for this because we'll get to some teams that we haven't been able to get to yet. We've done a mock draft, but I think we only did it for a top 20. I think. So we're gonna get to some new players, some new teams in this episode that we haven't gotten to yet, and hopefully we get a few picks right. We know we'll go 1 for 1 at least with Caleb, but from there that'll be more of a crapshoot.
So the rules are, I told you who's picking when. You get 4 to 5 minutes max to make your selection. Some picks will go, of course, faster than that, as you can imagine. But once we get later on into the first round, it might take a little bit longer and a little bit more conversation will be had, so that we can fit this into about an hour and a half max time slot. What are the rules on trades? If we're going to make trades, should we be able to trade with ourselves, or should we have to trade with the other person? So, like, I have an even team picking 18th. I don't know who that would be, but just for example, and I want to trade up with the 10th team, a team that I would be, also making a selection for. Should I be able to do that?
With it.
Okay. Then let's go ahead and get started. Why don't you pull up PFF?
Yep.
And you are on the clock with the first pick.
Yep. Bears on the clock. Pretty simple here. I'm taking Caleb Williams. I think we all know he's going number 1 at this point in the draft season. It's just a matter of time. He'll be a Bear. And I think it is the right move. I think he's the best quarterback in this class, by a fairly wide margin as well. Like I feel very confident in his ability to translate to the NFL.
Okay. No further explanation needed there. With the second overall pick for the Washington Commanders, I will be selecting Jaden Daniels, the quarterback out of LSU. I feel like this will be the pick come Thursday night. I think Daniels is as smooth as you can get from the pocket. He's athletic, dazzling run skills, making problem for opposing defenses. And I think with some of the pieces that Washington has added during the offseason, I think he's in a pretty good spot in that situation. So I'll go Jaden Daniels to Washington at 2.
Okay, now at 3, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. I think the Patriots are they have to take a quarterback in, at some point in the first round, whether they trade down or not. But I do feel that they are a team that might in fact trade down. Like I think there's a very likely scenario where I see them trading down with, say, a Vikings, and it just depends on how the Vikings view Drake May, to me, or possibly JJ McCarthy if they think JJ McCarthy is not going to fall to them. But I think I'm going to stay and make the pick, um, and I am going to go with Drake May, even though this is a what we would do mock draft, but um, I don't think this is necessarily the pick I would make. Um, I think the bottom line is Drake May has a ton of natural ability and tools, um, but the situation in New England with the wide receivers and with the just offense in general is not ideal right now, and that's where I kind of pause a little bit. But I think if the board were to fall this way, I think it's either him or them trading down.
I agree. So you'll go Drake May, number 3 overall to New England. They do need a quarterback. Um, Now Arizona is interesting at number 4. I think this is either going to, in this situation, if the board falls this way, this is either going to be the best receiver available, which in my opinion would still be Marvin Harrison Jr., but it is very close. Or it would be a trade down if they could get a good return on their investment there. I could easily see Minnesota trying to trade up here. But I feel like if you're Arizona, you go get Marvin Harrison Jr., who's the best player uh, available at this point in time, in my opinion. I think he's among the best receiving prospects to enter the NFL in recent memory. And I think he has the dedication to his craft to be a playmaking number 1 NFL wide receiver and maybe a future All Pro like his father was. So I think you don't pass up that opportunity to get a player like that in this spot.
Yeah, I agree. It's yeah, I'll leave it at what you said. Okay, now the Chargers at 5. This is another possible trade down opportunity. But here's the deal in my mind. I see it as this. So the Chargers, they bring in Jim Harbaugh. They bring in a new general manager as well, of course. They want to play smash mouth football, Harbaugh style of football, and they want to bring a toughness to this team that has not been there, frankly. Now, with that being said, a lot of people have thought of them as a sleeper to maybe go offensive line and or maybe trade down and go offensive line if they like one of the second or third tackles on the board. Um, I actually do like that scenario, but here's the thing: I also think that they are in a really tough spot in terms of weaponry right now. Keenan Allen being traded, Mike Williams leaving, it's a big deal, and they really don't have anything right now. So I think the pick here is Malik Neighbors. The dude is he's a different style to Marvin Harrison, and by this point in the draft process, you already know what he is as a player compared to him. But the bottom line is he's a playmaker that can take a slant route to the house at any time and point in the game, and that type of threat, defenses react to that. And once you have a player that defenses fear, it opens things up for your entire offense. So I just think you want to give that player to Justin Herbert. And I would even argue I don't think Justin Herbert has had a game breaking receiver like that. As good as Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are, they don't have the speed that Neighbors does.
Yeah, I agree with that. On to number 6 with the Giants. Now, the way the board has fallen with 3 quarterbacks and the 2 best receivers off the board, in my opinion here for New York, if I was making this pick, I would think offensive tackle, potentially. You could go Odunze here. I think the Giants are in a position where, Darius Slayton's a guy who's led them in receiving yards 4 out of the past 5 seasons, which is not great considering that Slayton's a guy that has never had more than 780 yards in a season in his career. With Saquon Barkley now in Philadelphia, New York needs playmakers. That's the bottom line. They've already made an investment in Daniel Jones. They seem to be sticking with that, at least to this point. If they could get good value in trading down, maybe at this point they would. Maybe they think, we could still maybe get Odunze if we traded down a little bit, or we could still get one of the 3 good offensive tackles, or one of our top offensive tackles. To me, I don't know if you take the risk in trading down, but I feel like in this scenario, I feel like the Vikings come calling, and let's see what the Vikings can offer. Can you pull up
Yeah. Here, so the
Minnesota's?
Vikings come up right here. So the Vikings have pick 11, 23, 108, 129, 157, 167. So they already have 2 first round picks that they can offer. They have, I think that's a third round pick, 2 third
I
round
would
picks.
take in this situation, since they're trading up 5 spots.
Right.
I'd be okay taking, if I were the Giants. Of course, pick 11, we swap.
Right.
Pick 23 if they were willing to give that up, and then like a day 3 pick or round 3 pick next year, something along those lines. But I do think this would be a spot where I feel like it's a little early to take Odunze. This is such a deep wide receiver class. I think you can find playmakers later on in the draft. You could find a receiver now that you're getting, the 11th pick. I mean, you could still get a really good player there. And I feel like the Vikings come up and get J.J. McCarthy, but you'd have to make that selection since you're the Vikings. But I
Right.
do want to trade down with Minnesota here.
Yeah, I accept that trade. Now, I'm going to do 11, 23, and pick 230.
Okay,
Because
fair enough.
all right, and I think I'm just gonna force that trade.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Now with Minnesota, the picks pretty much made for me. Like if you're trading up, you're trading up for a quarterback.
Yes.
There's no question about it. So
I feel like it's going to
right
happen.
here, it's I think so too. I think they are gonna go for their guy. And in this case, I think it is McCarthy. I think he fits their offense pretty well. The only other quarterback that I would think is pretty intriguing for them is maybe Penix if they have, if they want to maybe trade down to like 20 and get Penix. I actually think that would be a pretty good fit as well with how good he is in the intermediate passing game. But I think McCarthy, I like his aggressiveness on third down. I think that's an underrated trait. On third and long, he's not just throwing it short of the stick. He's still smart, but he's out there trying to make a play for his team, and that's what you want more than just someone who's just gonna look for not that long and then just dump it.
Okay, so now I agree with you. Now you make 7, and then I'll make 11 and 12 since I traded down with the Giants and I have the Broncos pick. So go ahead and make the Tennessee Titans selection, which I feel like is pretty obvious here.
Yeah. The common mock draft for the Titan, the common pick for the Titans has always been Joe Alt. And there's no mistaking it. They need offensive line help, like horribly bad, like all across their line. They've already addressed that some in free agency, but I feel like getting Joe Alt really cements it. I already locked it in just because that's how confident I feel in if Joe Alt's there. I think they take him, or insert your tackle one in this class. So it would if possibly be, you know, Fashanu or Fatanu or whoever the Titans have as their number one tackle. That's who they'll take.
Yeah, I agree. Did you know that never had an NFL draft without a defensive player selected in the top 10? And I think realistically, if there's going to be a draft where we see that happen, it could be this one, because I feel like the top is so offensive heavy. I feel like,
Right.
but I do feel like um, the Falcons are going to go defense, and I feel like I would go defense here. Now the question is, do you address need and go kind of more edge rusher or corner? Like a guy like Kenyon Mitchell could even go this high. I feel like
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I
Leatu
agree.
Latu, who I believe is the most well-rounded edge rusher in this draft. Or, in my opinion, you just go get the best defensive player in the draft, Byron Murphy, and that's what I'm going to do here for the Falcons. You get a I'm a little biased here, obviously, but you get an explosive, high energy pass rusher who can create havoc. You can move him around the defensive line. He's good on the interior. He's got a good, quick first step, powerful punch. I think he makes an impact on your defense right away. And I think he has the potential to be a Pro Bowl caliber interior defensive line. And those guys don't grow on trees. So I'll go best defensive player available for Atlanta.
Yeah, I love it. I think I don't know how Atlanta sees it in terms of defensive line, like how they would rank, him compared to those two edge guys at the top of this class. But as far as we can see it, I mean, Byron Murphy's the guy. I mean, you already explained it all. I'm going to leave it at that. But great pick. That puts me in a rough spot with the Bears now because that was the pick that I was planning on for them because they do need some interior help. They drafted Javon Dexter out of Florida last year in the second round, I believe. He had a good rookie season, but I just think Byron Murphy would have given them a different level of pass rush and just burst. I guess just high level playmaking that they've needed. But with the board the way it is now, you still have Rome Odunze sitting there, of course. Um, I I like the idea of Latu at this spot because he, as you said, he's polished. Like he just has a feel for the position that you don't often see at the college level.
Mm-hmm.
And going into a Matt Eberflus defense where they like to run a lot of light fronts and plays drop back into zones. You need studs on the edge. So I'm gonna go ahead and take Layatu Latu and pair him with uh, Sweat on the other side.
Nice. Okay, so I'm in a situation where I might be making 3 straight picks here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you have the Giants pick at
All
11,
right.
and I'll take 10 and 12 because I don't want to take 3 straight. Um, Here, I think for the Jets, it's Odunze or Bowers. I think it's or an offensive tackle. It's personal preference. Um, But for this particular mock, I think if I'm the Jets, I go all in on what might be the last year, could be the last year of Aaron Rodgers. I know the more sensible move here could be to take one of the offensive tackles and build some depth to boost what is kind of like a cobbled together group up front. But I believe if I'm the GM of the Jets, what's winning in this league is offensive firepower, weaponry, versatility, playmaking. And I feel like I push my chips to the table and take Brock Bowers, who I believe could become the de facto number 2 weapon right behind Garrett Wilson. And I think he solves a big need for their team as well. He gives them a big time creator after the catch. As long as he's healthy, I think he'll be a very good NFL player and could be better than that. So I'll go Brock Bowers. As long as his medicals check out, I feel like can't really go wrong with that.
Yeah, I like that pick.
And
I think
that would play perfectly for the Giants and what I think they need at 11.
yeah, and I think that's really going to come down to like the depth in each of those positions, like tackle or wide receiver / weapon, offensive weapon. Like whichever position they see as deeper, they'll not take with this pick, I think. So it'll really just depend on how they see it. But I love this pick because it's an underrated need that they just need. They need guys to throw to. Like Randall Cobb is just not going to cut it. Allen Lazard is not going to cut it. Okay. Now with the Giants, as you mentioned, this is a no-brainer. Rome Odunze sitting here at 11. For me personally, I think an interesting comparison I heard out there about this wide receiver class is 2011, that class with AJ Green and Julio. But of course, in 2011, they also had that third guy that people were forgetting about a little bit as well. That ended up having a long career. And I think that's where Rome Odunze is. I think there is a chance that teams, past this point right here, if he somehow gets past 11, there's a chance that he would possibly fall all the way to like 18 because the teams in the teens have very specific needs that they got to address. But I really don't see him getting past this point, really.
Yeah. And if he does, I think if he makes it past 9, someone's going to trade up potentially. Someone's going to be aggressive, like a wide receiver needy team, maybe in the mid to late teens or even the 20s, could trade up. I could see like Indianapolis trying to trade up. I could see even my team, Pittsburgh, who is in a position where they need a receiver opposite George Pickens, trying to trade up. I've already heard rumors they're trying to get up to 12 with Denver because they like a corner in this draft who I think Denver could absolutely take here. I feel like if you're Denver, you just need to draft good players. This is too high for Bo Nix for me. I wouldn't go Bo Nix here. To me, I take the next best edge or the best corner. And for me, I've just fallen in love with Kenyon Mitchell out of Toledo. So that's going to be my selection for the Broncos.
Love it. Yeah, I'm super high on him also. I think he's clear CB1.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you see the Broncos as maybe a team that doesn't take QB at 12, but then trades back up into the first round? Maybe I think I can definitely see that scenario.
If the right situation presents itself, yes. It's interesting. I don't know their quarterback depth chart. I know they just acquired Zach Wilson.
At the moment, it's Jarrett Stidham and Wilson.
Yeah. So I think they will get a quarterback. And if the opportunity presents itself, maybe in the 20s, if Bo Nix is still sitting there, that could absolutely happen. Yes.
All right. Yeah. Well, we've already had 3 go off the board. Some people project there might be 5 or 6 quarterbacks in the first round in this draft. So we'll see. All right. So the Raiders at 13. Yeah, this is. I mean, they have a lot of needs on both lines. I think. Like they're not a team that's ready to win, even if they do take a quarterback. And I have seen a lot of mock drafts where they grab Penix or grab Nix, and I just don't think they're at that spot. But at the same time, though, they do have a lot of veterans that, if they were to not draft a quarterback, would become unhappy and possibly be immediately just trade candidates like Max Crosby and then those types of guys. So at the end of the day, you got to keep those guys happy, and you gotta put butts in seats. So I think the pick right here is Michael Penix. I've seen this as a very common landing spot for Penix, and in some scenarios, I have seen it where they trade down and they get Penix. But the thing here is, I'm worried about, like, say that scenario we just mentioned, where say the Broncos trade back up, or if some other team wants to go grab a guy, like you just can't take that risk with quarterback, I don't think. So I'm going to take Penix. I think he's the next best available quarterback. I know that's not a common opinion, because I think a lot of people have Nix ahead of him, but I just think his big time throws are as good as any you're going to find in this draft class.
I would be fine with that. As long as his medicals check out well, I would absolutely be okay with that. Number 14 for New Orleans, I feel like this is an offensive tackle pick, especially if Olu Fashanu is still on the board. It's kind of a no-brainer.
Very quietly, though, they do have a defensive line need too. They have a lot of aging guys on that side.
They do, but for me, I go Olu Fashanu.
Okay. Yeah,
offensive line.
Good pick.
It's available. Yeah, I just feel like him as a high floor, pass protecting tackle, who's in kind of a work in progress as a run blocker, but very above average to kind of very good in pass protection. He can anchor versus power. He's got good attention to detail. I think he's a long-term left tackle, and that's important in team building. So it would be a tough decision, but because there are a lot of good edge rushers, defensive linemen on the board, but if Fashanu is still there, I don't know. Maybe I would do that, but that's what I would do.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I agree with it. Okay. Now with the Colts, it's interesting because the common picks for the Colts have always been Bowers, Mitchell, or Byron Murphy, as from what I've seen in mock drafts. And none of those guys are available now. So, in terms of needs, I do think wide receiver could be interesting at this spot. But I also think from seeing their offensive line, like their offensive line is in a good spot, but they do have a couple of guys that are aging at tackle. So I think this is a good opportunity to grab your tackle of the future. Now, for me, that guy is Troy Fatanu. For some, that might be Fuaga, and I know Chris Ballard. He likes his freaks. He really is into um, what is that? What is it called? It's like the Pentagon score or something like that, where they measure your pure athleticism. Um, and Fuaga fits that bill. But to me, the better tackle on the board is Fatanu. And
Yep,
I would put him over at right tackle.
and I wanted him for Seattle, but that's okay. I think here, if you're Seattle, you either go defensive line edge rusher or maybe offensive line. You could go interior offensive line. I think Graham Barton is a guy
Yeah,
that
I love Graham Barton.
you could move around. I feel like if he falls to 20, he's not going any further based on what I've heard. I'd either go Graham Barton or one of the edge rushers here for Seattle. Maybe Johnny Newton if you really wanted, the next best interior defensive lineman. Um, I feel like for me though, I will go. I think I'll just go. I'll go Graham Barton.
Okay.
He has the
Yeah, good pick.
versatility. He's got the versatility to move, play tackle. You can move him inside. You can play center. It's just a very solid, high floor kind of offensive lineman. Smart. Yeah, I think it would be a good value add for Seattle at 16.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a fantastic pick for them. And I think his run blocking is what's like kind of underrated about him too. Like I just don't see that talked about enough. But from what I've watched of him, he just knows what he's doing. He knows how to get to the next level and read what the defense wants to do and use that to his advantage. Okay, the Jaguars right here. I think it's corner or possibly receiver. Offensive line might be interesting, but they pretty much have all of those spots filled. They have Cam Robinson coming back from injury. They just paid guys on the interior the last couple of off seasons, and then they drafted Anton Harrison last year. So though that offensive line is filled, even though you would hope that you get some improvement from within. But right here, I think interior defensive line could also be a interesting option. It would have been a no-brainer, of course, if Byron Murphy was available, but now it is a little bit more dicey with him gone. Right here, I think I'm going to take best corner available, and that's Nate Wiggins.
Good pick. That's a good pick for Jacksonville. 18 for Cincinnati. I'm going to go Talies Fuaga out of Oregon State here. I think it's a more meat and potatoes pick for Cincinnati, but they pick up a tough and versatile player who can protect Joe Burrow long term. He's good in run schemes. I think he brings the footwork and athleticism to play right tackle. You can also move him into right guard if that's where he needs to play in the short term. If that's where you need him to fill in the immediate. I think he has the versatility to make that offensive line better right away. So protect Joe Burrow at all costs.
Yeah, definitely. That's an interesting one because now they have the largest group of tackles in the NFL. That's for sure. Orlando Brown, Trent Brown, and Fuaga. That is a lot of that is a lot of human. Let's just to put it that way. Okay. um, LA Rams at 19. To me, it's interior defensive line and or it to me it's front seven in general. Like any guy on the front seven, you take front seven. And to me, it's Dallas Turner. I think it's a pretty much a no brainer. If you think about the Rams, they had a guy in Michael Hoyt, a 290-pound edge guy, dropping coverage over 100 times last year, and the only guy on the board that I see as someone who's uh, willing and able to do that and be comfortable in that is Dallas Turner. I think he went into down into coverage 90 times for Alabama last year. So I think if the Rams continue that system now with a different defensive coordinator, of course, um, Dallas Turner will be the perfect fit for that.
Good pick. Okay, I'm now to the Pittsburgh. Here in this situation, if I'm making the pick for the Steelers, it's either Amarius Mims, the tackle out of Georgia, who you could pair with Broderick Jones. You can move Broderick Jones to left tackle and put Mims in at right tackle. That is a need. Or if you're Pittsburgh, you could go receiver. You could potentially go corner, but my two favorite corners for the Steelers are off the board right here. I think if they do go corner, it would be Nate Wiggins and Kenyon Mitchell. Maybe they go a guy like Terry and Arnold. I don't know. I just don't really see that right now. I think the meat and potatoes pick here is Amarius Mims, the tackle from Georgia. I would have loved Graham Barton here. You could also go Jackson Powers Johnson potentially to fill the interior liney, but you could also potentially, in the second round, go up and get a guy like Zach Frazier to fill that need out of West Virginia. I feel like for me, if I'm making a pick here, and I know, the Steelers, I'm going Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. I feel like he's one of those guys that Pittsburgh that I really like, and Pittsburgh and Omar Khan would really like. I feel like he checks all of their boxes: size, speed, ball skills. He'll give them kind of the vertical element that Pickens also gives you, but he's a little bit different of a kind of wide receiver. He's kind of like a physical specimen. He's got field tilting speed, sure hands. They need another playmaker. They absolutely have to get one. There's been rumors about, potentially trading for a big name guy. I don't know how much traction that has at this point. And so look, the smart pick's probably Mims, but fuck it.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic pick. I think
I know they like him. I know.
Yeah, it's a tough spot. I've heard Mims actually practices at right tackle 40% of his practice snaps. I don't know what the truth to that, but that is from the man himself. So it's an interesting thought. I think either case, you end up with feeling pretty comfortable about who you got. So for the Dolphins, I think right here for the Dolphins, it's interior of the offensive line or interior of the defensive line, with losing, of course. Crap, I'm blanking. The defensive tackle that they lost in free agency this year. Yeah, so losing him makes that a need. But they also have need at guard, like a pretty urgent need at guard with losing Robert Hunt. So with how the board shaped out, though, I don't see value at guard here at this spot unless you want to trade down, which I don't really see them doing. So right here, I'm gonna take Johnny Newton out of Illinois to refill in the interior of the defensive line. I think for Miami to take the next step, I think their defense has to become a good to great unit. Because I think the path to them winning a Super Bowl with Tua as their quarterback, they have to have a defense that's good enough to. I don't want to say compensate because Tua's not nowhere near a liability. That's not the wrong. That's the wrong connotation. But I think Tua is turnover prone. That is just a fact. So you need a defense that's able to withstand that.
Good pick. I really like Johnny Newton for the Eagles, and then you get the Giants and the Cowboys for your next two picks. You could go potentially wide receiver here, but I'm going to go my next best corner or defensive back on the board, and that's Cooper DeJean out of Iowa. I feel like he just looks like an Eagle. You're probably not going to like the sound of that, but I feel like one of the best tackling prospects or tackling defensive back prospects in this class. He's got the playmaking skills. They need some of that in their secondary. His athletic instincts and competitive makeup, you insert him into that defense, and I feel like he becomes a really, really good player. You could play him at corner, safety, or nickel. That's the versatility he gives you. And so that's the pick I would make.
Yeah, I agree. I think defensive back or corner it's the last missing piece for them. They got to get younger at that spot. I think very quietly they are a team that I feel pretty confident is going to trade up and get their guy. It didn't formulate in this mock draft, but I think in the real draft, I think they're going to get aggressive because they have 2 second-round picks at their disposal. Okay, so Giants on the clock. Terrion Arnold still available. Jared Verse still available. And of course, Amarius Mims. It really, to me, depends on how they feel about Evan Neal, the Evan Neal situation. He has not been good in the NFL. That's the reality. So they need to somehow upgrade that spot or have a alternate plan and move him inside. So for that reason, I think I've got to take one of these tackles. Let me just pull up the tackles that are available here so I don't make a short-sighted pick. Okay, so Latham, Mims. Between Latham and Mims, I like Mims more personally. I think his tape is just better, and he has. They both have an incredible amount of tools in terms of skill set, athleticism. But I think Mims he hasn't played a lot, but that doesn't mean he's raw. I think he has good hand placement. His kick slide is, accurate and he has. I think he has a good understanding of what pass rushers try to do to him, and I think his game will translate to the NFL. But he definitely needs the reps. He needs reps.
Yeah. All right, who are your Cowboys taking?
Well, the Cowboys have to shore up both lines. I think that's priority number one. So that could mean J.C. Latham. That could also mean possibly Jared Verse. Maybe I wouldn't hate that, but I don't see them picking Jared Verse. Yeah, this is. I think it's early for Zach Frazier. Center is actually a position of need as well, with Biadesh leaving as well. And I think I think at this spot I am going to go with J.C. Latham, um, because I do think from a realism standpoint, I do think there's going to be a run of tackles at some point in this first round, and also the Cowboys just they need to draft someone on either line, whether it be offensive or defensive. And in this case, Terrence Steele was a problem for us last year, and we need to upgrade that spot. So whether we move Tyler Smith to left tackle or not, I'm not sure yet. But J.C. Latham, I think, could fill either right or left tackle.
Yeah, good pick. Okay, so now I have Green Bay, who has their quarterback. They have lots of weapons, as we learned last year. They won a playoff game. You just took two of the offensive linemen I was actually considering. And now here for Green Bay, Fuaga's off the board, Mims is off the board, Latham's off the board, Barton's off the board, Fashanu and Alt are obviously off the board too. I was thinking offensive line, but now I'm looking at it. I'm kind of just I guess you could go. Do they really have a need at center? I mean,
Yeah, they have
you could go defensive line, right?
Josh Myers.
They need defensive line help, don't they?
They do have some young guys on the defensive line that they are looking to have take a step forward, but depth wouldn't hurt definitely. It does seem like their edge positions are pretty locked in at the moment with Van Ness and Gary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's see here.
See, Fatanu's off the board. Like all of the better offensive linemen I would consider here, unless you're going to go a guy like Powers Johnson here. You could go secondary, I guess. I mean, Arnold's still there.
Maybe I think their other need would be safety.
Yeah. I think for the Packers, potentially, you just go best player available here. Like, are you who's the best safety on the board? I feel like that would have been
well, the PFF rankings, they have Tyler Nubin as the best safety.
I mean, I feel like defensive line, they don't really need any receivers. They can get that later on if they really want it. I mean, I'll go Tyler Nubin, I guess. I feel like Arnold or Nubin. I feel like just go pick the need, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, I can see that.
I mean, what other players do you see them taking?
Yeah, the pick that I've seen the Packers make in a lot of mock drafts.
Maybe Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma.
Yeah, I can see that. The common one is DeJean, but of course he's off the board. DeJean was like just the seamless pick for like just someone who's versatile you can put anywhere. But with him off the board, it was kind of a rough spot. I could see them also trading out of the first round possibly.
Yeah.
But for the sake of this, like it would be too difficult to form a trade with a team outside the first round. So I think you did the right
thing. Okay, so for the Buccaneers, I feel like let me see my big board here. You need help on that interior offensive line. And so here, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go. Let me just check. I feel like you go Jackson Powers Johnson. You can plug and play him center or guard. He's got kind of like, I think he'll give, Baker Mayfield a more stable pocket right away. I think he will help them get their run game going, which is something they struggled with last year. So I feel like that would be my pick here at 24
Yeah, good
or
pick.
26. 26. All right, go ahead with Arizona.
All right, yeah, Arizona. Let's see, they took Marvin Harrison. Yeah, they took Marvin Harrison with their first pick. So here, it's pretty simple to me. I think it's Jared Verse. Last year, this team was. Let me put it simply: they were awful against the run, and they didn't have much semblance of a pass rush. Gardeck gave them some good, pass rush reps and was able to pressure the quarterback a little bit, but they need help at edge. They need help at front seven. So right here, you grab a stud defensive end in Jared Verse, and I think the hope is you'll be able to develop a little bit of a finesse package with him. Right now, he uh, he loves that bull rush. That's his go-to, and I think um, with his physical ability, I think that will translate. But I think he needs a little bit more of a complete pass rush bag if he's going to reach his full potential. But I think Jonathan Gannon can do that for him.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really good pick. Good value at 27. I feel like
Very good value.
Verse will probably go before that, but we'll see. Okay, so where are we at? We're actually making good time.
28 with Buffalo, and I have a pick in my head that I think that would be amazing, but I want to see what you're thinking.
Yeah, I feel like for Buffalo here, you need playmaker. You need another playmaker. You have a couple other needs. You could go defensive back, offensive line. For me, I look at this offense. I see Curtis Samuel. I see Khalil Shakir. I see Dalton Kincaid, who I think that is their tight end of the future. They still have Dawson Knox, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
You have Josh Allen. Um, if Brian Thomas Jr. was still available here, I'd like that for Buffalo. But for me, and again, you could go a lot of different directions here. But if I'm the Buffalo Bills, I'm making Adonai Mitchell a Buffalo Bill.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was
They need a
waiting for it.
bigger. They need a bigger receiver. Like they have a bunch of good, speedy kind of receivers.
Just
Yeah,
very like screen pass kind of type of weapons. Like you just need a dude. And I think AD Mitchell can turn into that for sure.
yeah. All right, Detroit's up.
Yep. Detroit. I would love either of these Alabama corners for them. I think Dan Campbell loves both of those guys probably. So I think the pick is probably one of them. But I love the idea of Chop Robinson across from Aiden Hutchinson. I know that would be a controversial one at this spot because I know Chop Robinson like he has this insane physical ability like and I know I say that about every prospect we talked about, but for him it's just like 100th percentile type of crazy shit. Like it's not even comparable to anyone. Like the amount of speed he has at his size. But I think the stunts and just games they can run with him on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson would be really interesting. But I'm not gonna choose him. I think I'm just gonna go with uh, I'll go with Terry Arnold.
Yeah.
I think between him and Kool-Aid, it is kind of close, but I think his tape speaks for itself, and I think with either of those Alabama corners, it's really just personal preference to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so with that being said, we're rounding out our full first round mock draft here. For Baltimore at 30. This is an interesting spot. I feel like though, if I'm the Ravens, um, my pick here is going to be Chop Robinson. The
Okay.
the edge out of is it Penn State? Yeah, I think it
Yep.
is. Yeah, that
That's a
would be.
great landing spot for him.
Yeah, I feel like it's a great situation, and he just feels like a Raven.
Yeah.
So I will go Chop Robinson.
Okay. Yeah. That's I think that's a fantastic pick. We know how good the Ravens develop their guys.
Yeah.
So that's a dream fit. So 49ers on the board now. Very quietly, I think the Niners could go receiver with their situation with Ayuk, and I think there's a situation developing with Debo as well. I think this could possibly be his last year with the team, possibly. But I'm not going to do that. I think they have some other more pressing present needs, particularly on the offensive line. Um, let's see. I think guard or tackle. I think it's just whoever they have higher on their board between either of those positions, you go with. Um, I think at this spot, I'm going to take Guyton out of Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer him over Jordan Morgan for a couple of reasons. I think he's better in the run game, and I think his the offensive system that he was in at Oklahoma is more projectable to the NFL level. Personally, I think what they did at Oklahoma, like a little bit more passing game stuff than what Arizona did. I think you can see more of what will be in the NFL. Like it's a more comparable situation.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so for the Chiefs, can anybody guess what I'm going to do here? The You could go potentially offensive line, of course. That can never hurt you. Um, you could also go defensive line, maybe. But I go Xavier Worthy. Um, put him in Andy Reid's offense and just let him go. And that's my pick.
Okay. All right. I can't argue with that. The thing is, it'll be all about him just becoming comfortable on those deep balls. Because once there's no question he's going to get open consistently. I think the argument would be like against that would be like maybe they would want a bigger wide receiver because they do have some speed within their offense already. But I think whenever you can get a guy that fast to go with Mahomes, he just knowing what he did with Hill, it's just too hard to pass up.
Yeah, they might have speed, but they don't have 4.21 speed
Yeah,
on their
yeah,
offense. And look, I mean, the fact and the matter of the situation is him and Quinn Ewers never really developed deep ball chemistry.
yeah.
And Quinn Ewers is not a great deep ball thrower. He's just not. Um, he's got a great arm. It's not that he doesn't have the arm strength to make those throws, but at the college level yet, that's something that I think has held him back from being just very good to being great at points and times in his career. And I think Mahomes would instantly fix that. I think they would develop great chemistry. Now, the knock on Worthy is he's got a very slender frame, and injuries could be a concern. Of course, he's struggled at times catching the ball consistently. I feel like, though, he showed last year that he's pretty good at catching the football. I think he showed at his pro day, too. Like, he catches the ball. There were some weird circumstances 2 years ago where he was playing through a broken hand that I feel like probably affected him a little bit more
Definitely.
than
Yeah.
he probably would have otherwise been affected. I don't know. It depends on how the board falls. Like, if the board had fallen a different way, I may have made a different pick there. But I feel like that's a popular pick that I've seen in mock drafts. And when in doubt, I'm going to pick the Texas kid because I feel like if sports betting were legal in Texas, I don't know if they have a bet out there for over under Texas Longhorns going in the first round, but I would set it at 2.5. And then, look, I mean, a month ago, and I don't mean to go on this tangent, a month ago, I would have said it probably goes something like Murphy, Sweat, and Mitchell would be the three that would potentially go in the first. But now with Sweat's off the field incident, the DUI or DWI a couple of weeks ago, and some of the weight concerns I feel like some teams have with him, I could see him dropping down to the second round.
Maybe even the third. I've heard.
Maybe the third round. So I feel like now if there's going to be 3 Longhorns going in the first, it's going to be Murphy and then the 2 receivers. Because I don't think JT Sanders is going in the first round, and I don't think anyone else even comes close. So there's our mock draft. We did it in an hour, 3 minutes, which pleasantly.
Yeah, I'm proud of us. That was really efficient.
Yeah. I feel like we just got our points out and moved on.
Yeah.
And we did make a trade, ladies and gentlemen. We did make a trade. We had J.J. McCarthy. We had the Vikings trading up to get their guy, number 6. The popular thing you see is like trading up to number 3 or maybe number 5 with the Chargers. But they get him anyways, and the Giants trade down and they still get Rome Odunze to add to their offense. It worked out well. What else stood out to you from this mock draft that we just did?
Well, to me, it's definitely the Broncos. I think with them going with Quinyon Mitchell at 12, it immediately switched things for a lot of teams further down, like the Jags and some of those corner needy teams like the Colts as well. So I think whether they, stay at that pick or not, I think they will take a quarterback in the first round. But I think this scenario would be really fun. Just Mitchell and Surtain on opposite sides, just hounding motherfuckers. Like, oh my God, like just inject it into my veins. Damn.
Yes, indeed. I feel like another thing that stood out to me was the Raiders pick. They're at 13, taking Penix. I like it. It's interesting. I'll be on the lookout for potentially maybe they'll take a quarterback. I feel like that would really potentially change things for the rest of the draft board.
Definitely.
So given what we had here at the top of, this first round mock, who do you who would be the players in your mind that would immediately go off the board day 2, given what we have selected here? Like if you're who's got 33, the Bears?
Panthers.
Panthers. If you're the Panthers.
Yeah. So to me, it's it's either Troy Franklin or Lad McConkey. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Those to me are the next two wide receivers. Maybe Carolina sees receiver differently though. Maybe they have someone like Roman Wilson a little higher or something like that. It's once you get this far down in terms of receiver, like it becomes a little bit more of each specific team will have a different guy that they're looking at.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else that we need to discuss? I mean, the draft's now in less than 48 hours, so anything that we feel like we need to get out there, we should do it now.
Only 4 quarterbacks taken in this one.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of offensive line, a fuck ton of offensive line.
Yes.
So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 offensive linemen. No, 8, 9.
A lot.
9 offensive linemen. That's wow.
But it's a
But
good
that I mean, I can see that
yeah.
for sure.
We only had,
It's a
what
deep
was it? How many receivers did we have? We had 6, maybe? 6 receivers go off the board. 2 Texas guys, Brian Thomas Jr.
5, I think.
5. Yeah, you're right. I could see more than that. But that feels about right, or around where it's going to end up.
Yeah.
I feel like the run on tackles is going to happen. Like for us, we kind of had it in the mid-teens. We had Fashanu, Fatanu, Barton, and then scroll back up. I feel like we had more after that. We had
Latham, Mims,
Yeah.
and then later on,
Fuaga.
as well. All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's going to happen at some point.
Yeah.
And then probably later on in the first round, you could see JPJ or some more interior offensive line. I feel like could go off the board. We had 3 edge rushers because we had Chop Robinson too. Did we have more than that? We had Latu.
We had 4 edges. Verse, Latu, and Turner.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm good. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the quarterbacks. If the Vikings actually trade up or maybe they stay put. And I don't know. I feel like that's one of the top 3 or 4 things people are going to be watching come Thursday night is what trades happen, as we're always looking out for that. I feel like the Vikings are the prime candidate right now and the one being most talked about to go up and get McCarthy. And then after that, I mean, in terms of like teams that are the most interesting, I feel like there are teams we know kind of what it's going to be, but I feel like what teams are interesting? Go down a little bit. Yeah, the 8, 9, 10. The 8, 9, 10 picks are very interesting. Interesting to see what the Falcons do with that 8th pick. Bears at 9 as well. I don't know. It'll be a fun.
I'm praying that the Vikings don't ruin another wide receiver.
Yeah. It'll be a fun draft. It'll be definitely a fun draft.
Oh yeah. I think 6, 7 trades first round. I think like with how many quarterbacks are out there and receiver talent even to an extent. I think we could see a lot of trades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like the Steelers are possibly going to make a trade. I don't know what it's going to be, but Omar Khan has showed us that he plays it a lot differently than Kevin Colbert used to do. So
Right.
we'll see on that part. The end of the first round will be interesting too. Like I feel like from Green Bay to San Francisco, it's pretty interesting.
Pretty wide open. Like I
Yeah.
think those are wild card teams. Like I don't know what, like nobody really knows what's going on in those draft rooms except for them, really. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
like I don't really see Tyler Newman going first round, but I'm not ruling it out for sure. Like any one of those teams, if they need safety.
Yeah, I don't know if I see a safety, but that was just kind of a weird spot.
Yeah.
I feel like that A.D. Mitchell to the Bills pick was just a match made in heaven. I'd like to see that come to fruition. But anyways, guys, thank you guys for tuning in. No, it's late, 11:30. We actually finished this a lot sooner than we thought we would. But thank you guys for tuning in. We'll post this mock draft on our social media so that y'all can look at it more before Thursday, and we'll see how many we get right. Next week we'll have some kind of draft recap episode. I don't know what exactly that's going to look like yet, but we're going to do it. We do it every year. And then we'll have our Steelers and Cowboys episodes sometime in May. And that will probably do it on NFL content until at least after the NBA draft and NBA free agency get going. But we'll still have football content. If any major news breaks, we'll of course address it. And then we'll still have a bunch of college football centric content on Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. So you won't be totally lacking for football. And we still have at least 3 more football NFL episodes until we kind of take a break from it. Because we also have baseball going on and the NBA playoffs. Tomorrow night is going to be good. Trust me. You'll want to tune in for Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. And you'll also want to tune in to our first NBA playoff reaction episode of the postseason. We'll be reacting to game 1s and game 2s along with the play-in tournament. Our takeaways, our reactions, our predictions for the rest of the series, everything that you could want. It'll be a good NBA meaty conversation. But until then, guys, have a great rest of your night. Enjoy the NFL draft. And for myself, Michael Ween, and for Emmy Nixon, we will see you guys tomorrow night. Peace.
See ya.